There's only one thing that, if used correctly, will not only make women desire you, but will keep you forever. Not your eyes, not your money, not your charm, your lines, or your pickup lines. It's something far more powerful and far more dangerous. Because if it's done right, a woman doesn't just choose you. She needs you, feels drawn to you, longs for you, even if logic tells her she shouldn't. And if it's done wrong, you don't create desire, but obsession, emotional chaos, a situation you can't easily escape. So here's the uncomfortable question you should think about for a moment. Why do some men keep trying, and women can't stop chasing them, while others do everything right and still get what they deserve? The answer isn't alarming, but it changes everything you think you know about attraction. Attraction isn't logic, it's psychology. And once you understand the mechanism behind it, you'll stop guessing and chasing. Before we continue, let me know if you enjoyed the video and subscribe to the channel. If you want to understand women beyond fantasies and superficial advice, you've come to the right place. Now we'll talk about what women are really looking for and why so many men don't realize it. Many men believe that attraction is based on being liked, that they're doing something right if a woman desires them, their attention, their presence, and their efforts. And initially, this is reassuring. Attraction seems like progress. Attraction feels like confirmation. But attraction is a weak sign. A woman can desire many things at the same time. She longs for unrest. She longs for stability. She longs for excitement. She wants to be desired. None of these desires binds him to her. None of these desires holds her to herself. The attraction is optional, and anything optional can be replaced as soon as something better comes along. Need is something else entirely. Need is not a preference. It's not a conscious decision. Needs operate beyond logic, norms, and promises. When something is connected to a woman's emotional well-being, when it becomes part of her emotional regulation, she doesn't simply choose it consciously, she's circling him. Just consider how quickly attraction can change. She desires a certain lifestyle until another one seems more appealing. She desires a particular man until another offers her a better feeling of the same kind. Attraction forgets quickly. Attraction is only faithful to its purpose, but needs don't behave that way. Needs are based on emotional survival. They are what the nervous system reaches when it seeks relief, distance, stimulation, or comfort. When a woman needs something, its withdrawal creates discomfort, anxiety, and a sense of lack that she cannot ignore. Her mind will do almost anything to eliminate this discomfort. This is precisely where the problem lies for most men. They strive tirelessly to be liked, to be more attentive, available, and sociable, without realizing that every time they are easily accessible, they reinforce a dangerous truth. I am replaceable, because if you give her everything without friction, without tension, without emotional consequences, you convey to her that your presence is not essential, it is optional. And optional things are always the first to be eliminated. When attraction shifts from wanting to needing, the dynamics change fundamentally. You are no longer evaluated in the same way, no longer rationally compared, and no one asks if you are the best option. She wonders how she feels without you, and she doesn't like the answer. This very realization reignites the attraction in your heart. Women rediscover what they want. They pursue what they need. And as long as you don't understand this difference, not intellectually, but instinctively, you will continue to try to gain reach through effort and power through attention. Men usually tell a convenient story. She lost me because I was good to her, because you listened to her, because you were there for her, because you treated her better than the last guy. This story has a noble quality. It also conveys a feeling of strength. Women don't let themselves be attacked by others. They refer to states of being, emotional states, psychological experiences, how her body calms down or blossoms in the presence of a particular man. When a woman says she's losing you, she doesn't mean she's losing your personality traits. She isn't rejecting your efforts. It reacts to the absence of a sensation that is no longer available to it. Calmness, excitement, relief, tension, confirmation. Any state you have activated in your nervous system. That's why men can behave in completely opposite ways and still evoke obsession or indifference. A man can be attentive, reliable, and emotionally available, yet easily forgotten. Another can be dishonest, inconsistent, even distant, and irreplaceable. The difference lies not in personality, but in emotional dependence. Dependence arises when your presence affects her well-being, when your presence soothes something within her or activates something she cannot generate herself. Then your absence creates not only sadness but also an imbalance. And this imbalance demands correction. This is where logic reaches its limits. Perhaps she knows you're not perfect. Perhaps she even knows the relationship isn't ideal. But knowledge alone cannot overcome dependency. The body pulls harder than the mind, and the body constantly seeks what restores balance. That is why women leave men they should desire and seek men they cannot understand. Therefore, even perfect actions don't guarantee loyalty. And that's why increased ambition usually only makes the situation worse. Here's the message men absolutely need to hear, without backing down. She's not losing you. She's losing the feeling she has in your presence. Once you understand that, attraction is no longer a mystery. It becomes mechanical. Not in a manipulative way, but in a precise one. You stop trying to perform to gain recognition and begin to recognize the effect. Because as soon as you become the source of an emotional state she can't easily change, the comparison ends. The competition fades. And the attraction begins quietly, subtly, internally, often before she even realizes it. Every woman carries an emotional space within her. Not because she's broken or weak, but because modern life silently creates failures where they hurt themselves the most. Pressure to perform, pressure to be controlled, pressure to be desirable, independent, accommodating, and ambitious, often all at once. Over time, something is denied, something remains unknown, and this absence creates a void. An emotional void is not dramatic. It goes unnoticed, it works silently, forming preferences, reactions, and patterns of attraction without ever asking for permission. And once you understand how it perceives things, you begin to understand women in a way that remains inaccessible to other men. This emptiness has nothing to do with what she claims to want. It's about what her nervous system is craving. There are 4 basic emotional needs that determine female attractiveness. Not dozens, not infinitely many variations. 4. And every woman carries at least one of them as a dominant trait. Confirmation, emotions, escape, challenge. These are not personality traits, but emotional deficits. Gaps created by routine, expectations, social pressure, hunger, by constant contact with men who all feel the same way. And if one of these gazebos remains empty for too long, it begins to exert a pull. This pull is the attraction. When a stranger films one of these gazebos, he doesn't feel particularly good about it. He seems confused, difficult to explain, difficult to change. She can't even call it attraction, only a feeling that his presence is different, necessary, stabilizing, or electrifying, in a way she can't create herself. This is where power comes into play. Because if you become the source of emotional emptiness, you lose value compared to other men. You're no longer competing on the same level. She's no longer comparing you to other options. She seeks you out, despite the discomfort of losing access to this emotional relief. But this power is not neutral. Filming an emotional emptiness creates dependency. Addiction creates attraction. And when that attraction disappears, it quietly transforms into obsession. The line is blurred, and most men only realize they've met someone when they're trapped in a situation they can't control. Understanding this emptiness not only explains the attraction, but also why it can turn negative if you're not aware of it. And now that you see the card, the real question arises: what emptiness does it hold within it? And how does that change everything else? Appreciation is the most unfathomable force of attraction. Most men believe that more appreciation means more desire, more commitment, more validation, more recognition. And at first it seems to work. She smiles, answers, and hurries off. But then something changes. Because constant appreciation doesn't create attraction, only security. And comfort becomes invisible when it's predictable. The nervous system no longer responds to what it can rely on. Whatever is always available loses its value. Women live in a world of judgment. Social status, work, partner, attention, it's all omnipresent. And because it's omnipresent, it's cheap. Appreciation only unfolds its full effect when it is unpredictable, deserved, and selective. Therefore, consciously and not desperately expressed, inconsistent appreciation stings much more deeply than endless pleasure. When she doesn't know when she will receive her recognition, a feeling of excitement rises within her. Dopamine is released and anticipation grows. She unconsciously begins to adjust her behavior to regain that feeling. Not because she wants to impress you, but because her nervous system craves this validation. Give her generous feedback and show her that your appreciation is free. If you remove it completely, distance without connection is created. But when appreciation consciously comes and goes, it becomes something that happens unconsciously. And then there's the emotion. Most women aren't tired because their lives are empty. They're tired because their emotional world is superficial. Routine, responsibility, predictability. The same conversations, the same results, the The same men saying the same things in slightly different voices. Emotions have nothing to do with chaos. They thrive on contrasts. A man who evokes emotions, moments that feel different, unexpected and charged, instantly disrupts this lightness. He doesn't disturb, he makes them reconsider. He creates tension where none existed before. Curiosity where once there was only familiarity. That's why the thrill is so captivating. Not because it's intense, but because it breaks with the norm. Unpredictability attracts attention. Deception sets the game in motion. Mystery stimulates the imagination. And imagination accomplishes more than any effort. As soon as your mind spontaneously produces emotional gibberish, you switch from the role of entertainer to the role of arouser. That's the truth most men shy away from. Women don't become dependent on men. They become dependent on the emotional experience men provide. Validation makes them feel seen. Excitement makes her feel alive. If you embody both of these qualities without being pushy, you're no longer just one option among many. You become an emotional high she can't simply access on demand. And once that happens, the attraction needs no further persuasion. It sustains itself. The process of ending the relationship is one of the most underestimated forces of attraction because, from the outside, it doesn't appear dramatic. She seems calm, reserved, almost shy, and that's precisely what makes her so strong. Most women are constantly preoccupied with maintaining appearances, taking on responsibilities, meeting expectations, juggling work, family, social pressure, their looks, and their performance, even relaxation often unexpectedly, requires keeping composure. Few places allow her to let go of all that. When a man becomes a place where she doesn't have to explain herself, impress anyone, or hold herself together, something changes. Her body relaxes in his presence. Her mind calms down. The constant inner noise subsides. This relaxation is not intellectual, but physical. Once the nervous system has made this connection, it craves to relive it. The solution lies not in confronting the problems, but in temporarily detaching oneself from them. They create a space where she can breathe freely, where she doesn't need to be controlled, where there is no pressure to perform, no judgment, and no need to control. This kind of emotional relaxation is rare, and rarity creates value. So that's the challenge. And that's precisely the problem, which men often misunderstand, because they mistake challenge for arrogance or coldness. But that kind of thing doesn't create attraction. Attraction arises from resistance. That's the uncomfortable truth. Many men are easy to get, easy to read, easy to access, easy to earn. They project too much. They invest too much. They rush to prove their worth before they've even generated any value. And relaxation stifles desire. People value what requires effort, not because they enjoy suffering, but because effort signals worth. If a man doesn't immediately conform to his favorite, doesn't deceive himself to attract attention, and doesn't contort himself to meet expectations, he creates friction, and friction creates focus. A man with high standards, clear boundaries, and a life that doesn't revolve around recognition presents a natural challenge, not because he seems aloof, but because he is true to his values. He doesn't seek validation, so he finds attention meaningful when it is given to him. Lack of attention doesn't mean absence. It demonstrates selectivity. If her time, energy, and consent are not automatically available, they carry weight. She cannot take access for granted. She needs to get involved, contribute, invest. Escape gives her security. Challenges stimulate her. Together they form a powerful cycle. Lightning is associated with excitement, security with striving. And once this cycle is established, the attraction ceases to need to be actively forced. She pushes them to her own terms. At this point, men make the same mistake. They try to fulfill all four roles at once. More affirming, more exciting, more comfortable, more distant. And that dilutes everything. You don't have to fill the entire emotional void. You just need to recognize what she already possesses. And you don't achieve that by listening to what she says she wants. You achieve it by observing what complicates things for her. Complications are like fans. They reveal failures. When she constantly talks about how tired she is of dating, how all men feel the same way, how nothing excites her anymore, that's not cynicism. This is a hunger for stimulation. Their system craves novelty, unpredictability, and emotional stimuli. It doesn't need validation. She needs variety. When she talks about being annoyed, tired, and overwhelmed, and constantly being needed by everyone around her, that's not a drama. That's pressure. She's carrying too much around. What she needs is not to solve the problem, but to make it easier. A place where she doesn't have to achieve or manage anything. Whether she seeks applause, withdraws, or gently desires validation, pay attention. That's not emptiness. There is a validation gap here. Resistance is lacking. The key lies in the constraint. You're not exaggerating. You're not playing a role. You're not forcing any behavior that doesn't suit your nature. You're simply taking on the role that fits the given context. When you do this, the attraction doesn't feel artificial. It feels natural, desperate, almost accidental, because you're no longer trying to create desire. You're responding to an existing imbalance. And this imbalance, if addressed correctly, always draws attention to its solution. There is a limit that most men only recognize once it has already been crossed. Desire and obsession don't indicate when one will turn into the other. The transition is quiet and gradual. It happens the moment a woman stops seeking access to you and instead needs you to feel balanced. When you become a source of emotional stability, you possess true power. Not symbolic power, not the power of alpha fantasy, but psychological power. The kind of power that draws someone to you, even if they are torn apart inside, even if they know better. And that's precisely where it becomes dangerous, because power amplifies what you already are. In the hands of a weak man, this turns into manipulation. He enjoys the chase too much. He relinquishes the feeling of being important. He nurtures dependency because it provides him with security, and eventually the dynamic collapses under its own weight, leading to resentment, chaos, or emotional hurt on both sides. In the hands of a detached man, power feels different. He doesn't exploit the emptiness. He respects it. He understands that an emotional leap doesn't mean deceiving someone about themselves. He knows when to build tension and when to release it, when to take a step forward and when to take a step back. Strength doesn't mean deceiving someone as thoroughly as possible. It means knowing you don't have to. When attraction turns into obsession, it ceases to be desire. It becomes the fear of loss. And fear is never a stable foundation. It undermines trust. It distorts behavior. It transforms connection into control. Therefore, the most dangerous men are not those without influence, but those who have never learned self-control. If you want to understand this dynamic, you should also grasp this. True mastery is not measured by how many people court you. It's measured by how responsibly you handle the leap you've created, because the same mechanism that makes you unforgettable can also make you destructive, depending entirely on who uses it. Attraction doesn't mean doing more. That was never the case. It's about positioning yourself in a woman's emotional world in such a way that you can't simply take that position. When you stop trying to impress her and begin to understand how emotional dependency truly develops, you also stop chasing after the desired outcome. You begin to create gravity. The only thing that changes everything is this: becoming the source of an emotional experience that she cannot easily create on her own. Not through force, not through performance, and not through manipulation, but through presence, restraint, and psychological clarity. When you understand the difference between desire and need, you no longer mistake effort for value. When you grasp emotional dependency, you no longer take rejection personally. And when you recognize the voices of your feelings, you stop guessing and see patterns that remain hidden to most men. This allows you to regain control. Not control over her, but control over yourself. Your reactions, your boundaries, your availability, your needs. And paradoxically, that's precisely what makes attraction sustainable rather than desperate. Those who don't ask questions won't be ignored. Those who don't chase after others won't be invisible. Those who understand their leadership role don't need to prove anything. If this has changed your perspective on attraction even a little, subscribe to the channel, like the video so this message reaches the men who need it, and share it with someone who's still trying harder instead of thinking more deeply. And if you've ever been in a situation where a woman couldn't let you go, or you didn't understand why she pulled away, leave a comment, not for validation, but to reflect on it. Because once you stop asking how to make her want you and start asking why she feels different, when you're not around, you're not playing the same game anymore.